August 17, 2021. And I'll ask Ms. Ramsey, our city clerk, to call to do the roll call.
Ms. Ford,
Here.
Mr. Etherly, Mr. Franklin,
Here.
Ms. Crockett, Mr. St. Columbia.
Here.
Ms. Davis isn't going to be with us this evening. That's 3 absent and 3 present.
And with me, that makes a quorum, so we'll get our meeting started. Ms. Ramsey, do you have the August 3rd minutes in the packet?
Ms. Ramsey, this is Don Etherly. I'm here.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes, sir. The August 3rd minutes and the August 9th were sent out in their packet.
Okay, great. So if you've had a chance to review the minutes, is there a motion to adopt the minutes of August the 3rd?
Was that the special call meeting or that was the first meeting of the month?
No, sir, that was the first meeting. The special call was August the 9th.
So August, so the one we're approving first was a special call meeting?
No,
Or
sir. It was your regular meeting.
So that's August the 12th was a special call meeting, right?
No, August the 9th was your special call meeting.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt the minutes from August the 3rd, 2021?
Mr. Mayor, Joe St. Columbia, I so move.
Mr. St. Columbia moves adoption of the minutes for August 3rd. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Ford, I think that was second to the motion. Any questions or comments? If not, call the roll.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
Franklin,
Yes.
Crockett, Forward,
Yes.
Etherly.
Yes.
That's 4 present, 2 absent. Okay, the next one would be the special call meeting, August the 9th, to discuss the mask in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Any questions about the minutes for August 9th, the special call meeting?
I have one.
Okay, Mr. Franklin.
Ms. Ramsey,
Yes, sir.
in that special call meeting, in the minutes, do we have any remarks about that I made about doing something for the city? Can you read that back to me?
No, sir, there's nothing in there which mentioned doing anything for the city. You had mentioned to me about putting it on tonight's agenda, though.
No. I've told the mayor in
Oh.
the last meeting that I would donate my
Oh,
service to City
yeah.
Hall.
Yes,
So that's
I'll
what
be
I
glad
said.
to add that, sir. Absolutely, I'll add that. Yes.
So can you read that back to me?
Well, I don't have my notes here. I just have this minute. But yes, sir, you
Okay.
donated your services to spray the buildings at any time at no cost.
Okay. So move.
Okay, so Mr. Franklin moves adoption of the minutes from August 9th as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr.
That's me.
Etherly seconds the motion. Any questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Franklin,
Yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
Forward,
Yes.
Crockett, St. Columbia,
I was absent, so I abstained.
okay, I had 3 present, 2 and 1 abstain.
Can I vote for adoption?
Okay,
I'll vote yes.
okay,
Okay, minutes adopted. August the 9th. Next item on the agenda are the financials for July. Mr. Turner, you're recognized.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to inform the council first off that in July, we received our first installment of Rescue Plan Act funds. We get 2 installments and we received the first one in July. The total funds that we received in this first installment was $1,064,093.38. At the 1st of August, we moved those funds into a separate fund so that we could more accurately account for the expenditures of those funds, and also to help in the financial reporting to the federal government of those expenditures. But net of that payment from the federal government, we had a gain in paying from operations of $486,000. And we had cash that was net of those American Rescue Plan funds of $421,000. So besides that, moving on to, I also want to talk about the appropriations for the overtime for the police and fire department that I brought up last council meeting. I think I brought up in a special call meeting, but we still need additional appropriations for the police and fire department for overtime. So far through July 31st, the police department's overtime is $137,815. Their budget is $110,000. So they're about $26,000 over. Let's see. And the fire department is currently at $56,000. Their budget is $60,000. This is as of July 31st. And so they're close to getting to going over their appropriations as well. And so what I'm asking the council to do is increase the appropriations for the police and fire department. Now, what I recommend is that, considering what they've spent so far, and so I projected out at this current rate what the overtime would be by the end of the year. And I come to about 126,000, well, 236,000 for the police department and 96,000 for the firemen. And so I'm asking for, recommending that we just appropriate $125,000 for the police department so that they would have enough to cover them for the remainder of the year, and an additional $40,000 for the fire department. So I'm open to hear what the council's thoughts are about the treasurer's report or the need for additional appropriations.
Mr. Turner's asked for the council to consider increasing the appropriations for overtime for the police and fire department, and entertaining any questions about the July financial report. Anybody at this time? So as usual, it's kind of hard for me to see.
Mayor,
yeah,
I forgot to add something. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
What I also wanted to suggest to the council is that I was looking through the salary so far through July for the police department. And through July, they had 312,000 in actual salaries. And the appropriation was for 852,000, a little over 852,000. And so I projected this current rate out to be about $587,000 for the remainder of the year, by the end of the year, I should say. And it looks like we'll have a budget surplus if things go at the same rate that they're going now. Have a budget surplus in police salaries of approximately $264,000. And so my suggestion for increasing the appropriations for the police department's overtime is to take the additional appropriations from their salaries and wages. And so I'm recommending an additional $125,000 in overtime appropriations for the police department. And I want to take that from the projected surplus in police salaries. So it'll have, it won't deplete the remaining appropriations that we have now, total appropriations.
So any questions of Mr. Turner?
And also they can just think about it, but that's where we are right now.
All right, Mr. Turner, does that conclude your report?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't see any hands or anything, so we'll move on to discussion. Actually, Ms. Davis asked for this discussion carried forward from August 3rd on an abandoned and neglected property list, and Ms. Davis couldn't make it here tonight. And I think one of the schools are starting back, so I'm sure she's very busy with school business. So I think she'd want to be here for that discussion. So if there's no objection, we'll move that to the next agenda for the first meeting in September. If that's okay with everybody. So we'll move on to the Rescue Act funding request. The Rescue Act, as you just heard, and to clear up any misunderstanding the public might have, we have received the funding, or the first installment of funding. As Mr. Turner pointed out, the total disbursement is based on population. It goes through the state of Arkansas. We received our first installment, as I indicated in earlier meetings, $1,064,038. And there are two major categories, which three really, that cities are encouraged to spend that money on. There are additional issues, additional ways to spend it, requires additional paperwork. As you might imagine, with cities getting that kind of cash, people come out of everywhere, every nook and cranny, with ways that they would love to separate you from your money. In our case, we have hit almost historic level of deferred maintenance issues, especially with water and sewer. And water and sewer and stormwater happen to be, which is not strictly speaking, it's actually a street department issue, not technically a water and sewer issue, but they're related. And that's the category which the federal government and the state of Arkansas said they hope cities will spend the most attention on, because they know that's a problem across Arkansas. It's not just here. It's worse here, but it's not just here. Broadband access, and as well as speed, reliability, and cost is the second priority that they set for cities and states to spend this money on. The third would be cities that can demonstrate a marked or really any decrease in revenue as a result of the pandemic. In reality, although we were afraid of it, we actually gained money from the pandemic. So we don't qualify for that category. At the beginning of this debate, Congress said that's all who was be entertained with the cities that actually lost real revenues directly because of the pandemic. And frankly, when I saw that, I kind of tuned out because we weren't going to be eligible. But then they changed those rules. But that still is the third biggest category. And then there are a number of other smaller funding categories that have been added. So at the last meeting, I believe it was, last regular call meeting, anyway, the last two, we've discussed the Rescue Act funding. And so what we concluded was, or at least for the time being, that we would go forward on a case-by-case basis. For people that don't know, the state law requires there to be an appropriation for the mayor or the administration to spend it. Without an appropriation by the city council to spend it, it's misappropriation of funds, which is actually a felony. So I can't spend that money. The city can't spend that money unless the city council appropriates it. So we decided, I believe we, by default, maybe decided to take these on a case-by-case basis. The first item, or one of the first items, well, actually the first item was a pandemic funding campaign, which we discussed last week and y'all approved. But on tonight's agenda would be a request for a 3-axle dump truck and an F-350 truck. And then next to that is fire hydrant inspections, which I'll talk about in just a minute. The 3-axle dump truck and the F-350 truck would both be purchases made through the Water and Sewer Department, but they could be detailed throughout the city. We desperately need a regular dump truck, not a landfill dump truck, but a dump truck that can, and I'll be very frank and with all candor say, we have a difficult time clearing off vacant properties without a dump truck. It's infinitely more expensive to hire a contractor to do that work, and time consuming because we don't have very many contractors who can do that work. So one of the things that I would ask tonight would be for an appropriation for a 3-axle dump truck, which we looked at today, would be less than $200,000 and would be financed, which means it would come back to the city council anyway. But the second thing would be an F-350 pickup truck, which we only have one. It's on its last legs, and it would be an authorization up to $35,000 or appropriation up to $35,000 out of the Rescue Act to help us have the money to appropriated to purchase an F-350 pickup truck. I'll go ahead and discuss the third thing so we can maybe deal with it quicker. Fire hydrant inspections. Fire hydrants we think of as being purview of the fire department, and they are, but they're actually inspected through a different process, and with recommendations from the department heads, has spoken to a couple of vendors who have done this for us in the past. I'll highlight this by saying this. We had a fire in Helena last week, I believe it was, in a housing authority apartments, and the fire hydrant didn't work. Just didn't work. They hooked up to it, didn't turn on. We have that happen more frequently than it should happen. And one reason for that is because we have not annually flushed them and checked them on a regular basis. It costs about $45 per fire hydrant to flush them and inspect them annually. Our fire hydrants here have not been inspected or flushed in many years. Some of them have because they've been involved in fires or through some other way, but most, I'd say 90% of them haven't been. In order for us to lower our ISO rating, which is the rating that is used to determine our fire safety as a city, one more and probably the last notch that we're allowed to at this population level is to have 30 firemen, and also to have our fire hydrants annually inspected and flushed. So the third request would be an appropriation to allow us to enter into agreements to begin the process of flushing and inspecting fire hydrants. Actually, I'm only asking for an appropriation. So I would say up to at least 7,500, just in case it ends up being one vendor. And if it is, then we'll do the rest. To give you some idea, we can do about 100 fire hydrants for $5,000. We have about 700 fire hydrants. So this is not going to take about 2 weeks to do 100 fire hydrants. We need to do them all. The fire department is in the process of filling that last position to get us to 30. By the time we finish the fire hydrants, if we start now, we should have somebody out of the fire academy and in our fire department so we can reach that magic number. We can apply for an ISO rating. What does that mean? It lowers the insurance rates for all residents and businesses in Helena-West Helena, so that it saves you money on your insurance. And also it helps us when we are talking about expansion plans, recruitment, and all the other things, people who move here, all those other things. It goes, and I can tell you, since my day job really is insurance, then an ISO rating is an extremely valuable thing and important to protect. Your fire department is the primary reason for that, but they're only as good as those fire hydrants, and they haven't been inspected and flushed in years. So, so my third request, it would be to review 3-axle dump truck, 200,000. It would be up to, not to exceed, then probably somewhere between 150 and 200. Finance agreement would have to come back to the council. An F-350 truck up to 35,000, which would be state bid, would not necessarily have to come back to the council. And then the fire hydrant flushing and inspections, which I would ask for up to 7,500, which is the minimum bid amount. If it goes over that with one vendor, then we would come back to the council. But I cannot spend even $45 without an appropriation legally. So I'll stop talking there and take any questions you might have.
I have several questions. You said a 3-axle dump truck. Mayor, I have no problem with a 3-axle dump truck, but when you were buying these other trucks, we should have thought about that then with the I'm probably in favor of that, but what I would like to see us do, even with the water hydrant and things like that, all that is necessary. That is very necessary. But do you not see the issues with the drainage, the ditches not being dug out? I could see for the dump truck, for somebody to get on the backhoe, start digging some of these ditches out, so the water can not sit up on the streets. That's why we got to study replace streets and do things like that. That is, the dump truck is, that one issue is needed because we're already having a backhoe. But for these other items, I think that it would be nice if you got with the, got with the city council and say, hey, we need to prioritize this money and see what is, because the people in the community are our main concern. I heard you say about the police overtime. They have spent more than budgeted already. So we're gonna make appropriations for that. They may, but I'm on this right here. We should try to take.
Mr. Franklin, you're cutting up on us. You're cutting up on us. Can you get,
which is fine, we got this money. But we also ought to look at going down some of these streets that all the houses are burnt. See how can we make sure that the meters are pulled up and That's why we got a lot of these cows that no one, unless somebody's in the body proof, street by street. Can you hear me now? Hear me now?
Not really, you're breaking up pretty badly.
What about? What about Amir? Can you hear me now?
Still pretty bad, Mr. Franklin.
It's
Let me
it's
see if
still
we can get
breaking
some
up.
other, while you work on your connection issues, let me see if there are any other questions from the council. Any other questions from the council?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you reiterate what our current ISO rating is and the ISO rating that we're striving for? Second question, that F-350 truck, is there a department designation?
Say that one more time.
Is it designated for any certain department?
Yes, ma'am. It would be designated for the water and sewer department. And on the first question, we're aiming, our goal would be a 2. I don't think we'll ever be able to make it to a 1 because of the size of our city. Our goal would make it to 2. To do that, we have to have 30 firemen. We have to have the fire hydrant inspected annually and flushed annually to make sure they're working. So it makes sense so that what happened the other night doesn't happen. And that's not the first time, by the way. To have, in our case, because of the mileage involved, 2 main fire stations and 1 outpost, which is our Midland Heights station at Fern Hill, which is in working order and being used. So we have the 3 fire stations. We also had to have, there are just a lot of things to tick off. I won't go through all of them, except to say that Chief Brown, Chief Wilson did a lot of work, and as well as the other members of the fire department have done a lot of good work writing grants, getting funding, helping us tick off those boxes over the years, and primarily give that credit to them. They worked very hard. We do have to have 30 firemen, and we're short of that, but we expect to have that about the time we get these fire hydrants flushed.
If I may, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. And this is my thing with the flushing of the fire hydrants. The water department normally does that. I've seen them flushing on several occasions. I'm not trying to be argumentative or anything, but I think that with this F-350, we have trucks that the departments have still failed to put decals on. This body has requested that. I think if you give a F-350 truck, who does it go to? I know you said the water department. We got trucks right now that the water department, the people refuse to put city decals on after this body asked for them to put them on. They have to find and didn't do that. My thing is, we need to give the people what they need. These drainage, these ditches are not being dug out. I'm for that dump truck because you got ditches that's not being dug out. When it rains, neighborhoods are flooding, and we could I'm for taking one step at a time so people can see solutions, because all the drain pipes are covered up with dirt. I think we need to get with the water department and see how can we work with the water department on them getting out, seeing what ditches need to be dug out the most, so we can keep some of the water off the streets. So as you come down Oakland Street, I know this is probably state highway, but if you come down Oakland Street, you see where those drainage are covered up with grass. The water can't run down the side of the road to the drainage. Look at all our drains that are covered up. Even on some of the neighborhoods, you got dirt so thick that you can't, get the water can't get to the drainage, so it sits in the streets. I would like to just take first priority and taking care so the people can see what we're doing with the money. Yes, the vehicle is needed, but you had some people out here in the water department fishing in city vehicles. So I'm for making sure that the community can see that we use this rescue fund money in a proper way so the citizens, so the citizens can benefit from this to see what the money did for the citizens, not about buying a new F-350, but if you buy this dump truck, it would greatly help the city where people, when you start digging these ditches out, you can throw the dirt on the back of the truck. If somebody needs some dirt, get them the dirt. That's just me. And that's all I have for you.
So do you want to make a motion on the truck?
I don't want to make anything until the rest of the body has spoken. I'm just one vote. So I'm not going to push anybody to do anything. Once they decide, I will, whatever the pleasure of the body, I'm with them. So I'm not going to jump over anybody because Mr. St. Columbia had something to say as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Mr. St. Columbia?
Yes, sir. Now, it's my understanding, this is that Rescue Act funding money that we must appropriate in order to spend it. And so it's.
Yes, sir.
Really, we can get it all done. The truck, the inspection of the hydrant, and dig out these ditches, all with this money as well. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we approve the appropriations of the funds that you've requested for these projects and clean those ditches out and use that truck and for the cleaning up these houses, because we've got a lot of houses around here that needs hauled off and cleaned up. So the money's there for us through the Rescue Act, and the $35,000 for the truck seems reasonable. $7,500 on the hydrant. And you didn't mention the amount for the ditches, but we need to dig these ditches out. We sure do, and I agree with Mr. Franklin on that. So my motion is that we move appropriately for the appropriation of the funds necessary to get this job done. That's my motion. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. St. Columbia. You've heard the motion. Is there a second? Motion is for appropriations as discussed, up to $200,000 for the 3-axle dump truck, $35,000 for an F-350, up to $7,500 at this point for fire hydrant inspections and flushing, which would have to be continued later, but up to get that process started. And then on the ditching project, which is on the agenda, the issue there to appropriate what is necessary for that. And Mr. Valley, do we need to put a number on that? Mr. Valley, are you on? I heard you. Yeah, there you are. You're muted. Mr. St. Columbia, could you amend your motion to say, I mean, this is the ditching project is a much more expensive project. It is related to stormwater, which is an allowed use for the money. I would say conservatively $50,000 would be, at least from an appropriation point of view. It would still probably require bidding if it's done outside the city, or if equipment's required to be purchased. And I can tell you equipment would be required if we do it as a, internally. So either way, that's going to have to come back before the council, but the appropriation could be, generally speaking, up to 50,000 to get started.
Okay, I'll amend.
If that's acceptable to you. I think we do need a number, probably.
Okay, I'll amend my motion for that request.
Mr. Mayor, can I weigh in on this second part about the dump truck?
Oh, we got a motion.
Well, I'll tell you what, Bobby, hold on just a second, Mr. Jones. Let's see if we get a second to the motion.
Yeah.
And then we'll open it up for conversation. So you've heard the motion from Mr. St. Columbia. Amended it to include up to 50,000 appropriation only for the ditching project. Is there a second? Is there a second to Mr. St. Columbia's motion?
Mayor, I'll second it if we can have a discussion after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Ford seconds the motion. Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Now we open it for comments and questions. Ms. Ford?
Mayor, can we not have the ditch digging as a standalone and wait and get the information that we need to bring to the council for that appropriation? We don't have to do it tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like
And
to have all that information.
that's certainly okay for me, you know, yeah. I mean, I don't have any objection to it. I will tell you though, since you asked, I'll say this. The challenge there is, and this is something, I mean, when you go door to door as I have, you see these ditches. When I went door to door in 2018, I was appalled at how many years had gone by on most of the ditches in most of our town. And I don't think it really, I really don't think it mattered what section of town you were in. Some are worse than others. The lack of maintenance on our ditches is just absolutely astounding. The silting, some didn't even look like ditches anymore. As a result of that, the stormwater, you know, goes faster and into other ditches. It causes more flooding. On top of that, the state, in my opinion, humble opinion, has not done the job they should be doing on 4th Street, Sebastian, and some of the ditches that they're responsible for. And so that backs it up even worse. We have a severe problem with stormwater drainage here. And in North Helena and a few other places, we have the situation where it backs up into our sewers. And that's where you get sewage coming out in the streets, which are a violation of EPA and state environmental laws. And we have to take mediation requirements every time that happens and report it to the state. It's very common in Mississippi River towns with old systems, because when they built them, those were allowed, but it's a very big strain on our newly refurbished sewer ponds, because stormwater goes into those ponds and causes them to be higher than they would have otherwise. So stormwater is, and ditching as part of that, is a huge, huge problem. Plus we have Crowley's Ridge in addition to the Mississippi River and the levee system. So it's almost a perfect storm, pardon the pun, when it comes to stormwater. So I'm definitely with everything that's been said about that. Having said that, I don't object to partitioning that out for separate discussion. That would be up to Mr. Columbia who made the motion.
I agree with everything you just said. I see the ditches running over, especially here on the corner of Beach and Walker Street. I don't have a problem with it. I was just wanting to make sure that we affix an amount to it, a projection. That's why I'm asking that it be separate at the next meeting.
We do have a motion in a second on the floor, so I'm going to open it up to any other questions or comments.
Mayor, one more thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Because we included that truck in there. Is there any way that you can facilitate getting decals put on city trucks?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And I'll make sure the decals are on that truck. I'll do it myself if I have to.
And I have a question, Mayor. I do. Reason why I'm concerned about the ditches is if you look at my video picture that I can see your face, this is the ditch that we paid all that money for right beside the hospital. And as you see all the trees and fell over in the ditch, that's a part of a drainage issue. And I feel like these ditches are important. Now I'm not for all this stuff right now. I want to do a step-by-step plan, because the citizens need to see that we're working, buying these vehicles. And you just said that you will put it on personally, but we have other trucks that are running around that we don't even know they're city vehicles. I'm for cleaning up some of these ditches. I'm not for this motion. If this motion fails, I'll make another motion, because I feel like that if this is right in front of our hospital. And this is the ditch that we paid all this money for to contract it out. And this is the way it looks right here on Newman Drive. And this is why we have floods. This is why water is back in the streets. The ditches are important. We got this Rescue Act money. We should be trying to rescue Helena out of some of these problems. Buying these trucks, the dump truck is needed because you can get this backhoe and get all these trees out of this gully so the water can flow through. We have this in a lot of neighborhoods. People are complaining. I'm for getting that dump truck. That's what I'm for. And getting these ditches cleaned out. We can, at another time, we can get a truck. At another time, we can get these fire hydrants. But right now, I'm for this right here. So I know it's emotional on the floor, but I want you all to see this ditch because people, you see that ditch, that's what it is. So I'm for whatever. So.
Thank you. Other questions or comments about the motion that's on the floor?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, as I understand it, 50,000 is the maximum amount of money that can be appropriated at this time for the ditches. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
That's the amount that I suggested as a first step to in the appropriation. It's going to cost more than that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can tell you ahead of
But
time.
we have no plan at the present, so we need to start a plan.
Absolutely.
And this is what you're saying we need to do to get started.
Yeah.
Because nothing's going to happen until we make it happen. And we've got to start a plan. And this sounds great with me that we start one. And you're talking about appropriating the amount of $50,000. And this money is from the Rescue Act funding. And the fire hydrant certainly needs inspected. They're all over town, and it's a shame that they hadn't been done in a long time. And I'm glad that we can get this Rescue Act funding money to get all this done. So I want to make sure that was correct. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Jones, are you still wanting to be recognized?
Yeah, I want to talk about the dump truck issue.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
We getting several calls. We got people calling in willing to pay the city, for demo. We got a lot of houses need to be towed down. Then it'll help us, a lot with these ditches. I mean, we tried a couple years, last year or whatever, to haul, when you're digging those ditches out with that wet mud, it ain't gonna work with your boom truck. I mean, water department, I think they was borrowing a little small dump truck we had that's out of service now, but we definitely need a dump truck. I mean, it will actually bring in revenue to the city if we had that dump truck. You got people willing to pay if we can get out and do this demo. Citizens willing to pay, but we definitely need that dump truck.
Mr.
It
Jones,
will help a lot.
Mr. Jones, that's exactly why I made the motion. I know we have to have it because we can't do it with what we have right now. And if we don't have a dump truck, we certainly can't clean out the ditches. And we can't clean out these houses with all the stuff we've got to put in. Our trucks we have now can't handle the job. That's why we need that truck. And these fire hydrants got to be taken care of too. So that's why I made the motion like I made it. No, we have to have that dump truck. No question.
B Street. B Street apartment over here. If y'all familiar with B Street apartment, we was about to be charged, I think, close to $12,000 to $15,000 for that project over there on B Street. I got into the excavator and I towed B Street down myself to save the city money. But the debris is still there. We just waiting if we can get a dump truck. I mean, we got somebody now want to charge us $6,000 to $7,000 to go over there, probably $7,000 to go over there and pick the debris up. But if I hadn't went over there and tore it down, we'd have been out of $12,000 to $15,000 for that whole project.
But with our own dump truck, we can
definitely need a dump truck. I mean, like I said, I'm gonna say this again. It would bring in some revenue if we had that dump truck.
I agree with both of you all.
And I really need the revenues.
but I can say this. I agree with both of you all. I agree with both of them, Mayor. But Mayor, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna leave it alone. We had a dump. We would have had a dump truck. We would also had the road to the landfill paved that we were looking at. But we had a $1 million grant that we missed to pave that road and buy a dump truck and get a new dozer or something at that landfill. But the person who applied for the grant resigned. So we lost that money and we could have had two things instead of us renting equipment. We could have a dump truck, a paved road that we could have got off a grant, but we failed to do that. So at this time, yeah, I'm for the dump truck, but I'm not for all the other stuff. Because see, I feel like this, we missed the opportunity to get a dump truck months ago, and because we rented equipment at the landfill, we could have all this in one swipe, and we could have used this other money that we got now. How about a dump truck? We could use this money to do something else. So we have missed opportunities to do different things.
Well, let me make something clear. This money is not allowed to be used for a landfill.
I understand it, but
we did get a dump truck for the landfill, and we did get a truck. Two dozers for the landfill. I'm not familiar with any grant for $1 million.
Me neither.
And I would object to that strenuously, because I'm not aware of any hint of any grant for $1 million at the landfill. But having said that, the landfill is not an eligible expense under the Rescue Act anyway. But I will say that I wanted to clarify something. This $50,000 for the ditching project is an appropriation. I cannot imagine anything, and maybe Mr. Jones can steer me right or tell me I'm wrong about it. I don't think so. The ditching project is so expensive. I can't imagine anything that we're going to do within that $50,000 that will not come back to the council anyway, whether it's contracting it out or getting the equipment we need to dig the ditches. I can tell you that Mr. Jones did save us money on the Beach Street project. The reason the rubble is still there is the vendor who was going to propose an amount for the council to approve ended up being sent to another project that was ready to pay him then and there. And he left us, and we never got a chance to use that vendor. One of the things that people don't always realize is that we don't have a lot of vendors who do this. We just don't. The ones we have are very good, but they're busy all the time. Right now, someone just offered us $5,000 to take down some buildings that are frankly already down. Really, you just have to blow on them and they'll be over. The problem is not knocking them down. The problem is cleaning them up. That's the expense. And we don't have the appropriate equipment, and that's where that dump truck comes in. So we could take that $5,000 and get that done pretty quickly with a dump truck. Without it, we have to contract it out or bid it out to people who are already extremely busy and have plenty of business. Unfortunately, we just don't have enough vendors who can do it. Their schedule is, we need more vendors, frankly.
We need that. We need that.
The other thing I would add is the 50,000. I want to say this to Ms. Ford, especially the 50,000 isn't an appropriation. It's mostly just an authorization. I'll tell you verbally tonight, there isn't anything we're going to do with that $50,000 that I'm not going to come back to you about. I just can't imagine any project, but even if something pops up, Mr. Jones, can you think of anything on the ditching side that would come in that 50,000? It's not going to have to come back before the council anyway. Equipment, contracts, vendors.
I agree with you on it. With that, you say 50,000?
The 50,000 for the ditching that Mr. St. Columbia included in his motion. I really can't think of anything that would be under $5,000 or $7,500 that would even begin to address it. So we're going to have to come back before the council anyway. And even if there is something that I'm not thinking about, I'll make that promise that I'll come, even if it's $3,000. I cannot imagine what it would be. But if it, if it were to come up, I will bring that before the council and we'll have a bigger discussion. And Ms. Ford is exactly right
Yes.
that we need a longer discussion about this one issue. That's one reason I had it on the agenda as a separate item. And I'll pledge to come back with that anyway, regardless of.
I agree with you on that.
I don't know if that answers any of Ms. Ford's questions or not, but
It
the other
does.
things, the only thing I would say about the other things is it can all be done at the same time. So there's no reason necessarily to wait on the fire hydrants. We had a housing project where the fire hydrant did not work. And if we hadn't had the tanker with the tank water in it, we could not have suppressed that fire. And we, unfortunately, and the fire department will verify for you, that's not the first time that's happened. And if there's one thing, you know, there are a lot of bells and whistles out there and flashy things to do with this money, but we have got, and sexy things, as I like to say, that are fun to talk about. But if we can't do the basics that our citizens expect of us, like a working fire hydrant, then we've failed them. So the fire hydrant, the F-350 truck is needed to pull the equipment around, the 3-axle dump truck, as we've already discussed. The ditch request, the 50,000 won't even begin to scratch the surface of that. So we will have to have another longer discussion anyway about that.
Mr. Mayor, Joe St. Columbia. The plan is that we do these things. Nothing's going to happen until we make it happen, and we've got to make this happen. We can show the public that we're spending this money appropriately, and that's what we're doing tonight, is trying to get something started. And this is the best thing I've seen in a long time. And I call for the question.
Okay, Mr. St. Columbia calls for a vote. Most have been moved and seconded. Discussion and questions. Ms. Ramsey, call the roll.
Mr. St. Columbia,
Yes.
Ms. Crockett, Ms. Ford, Mr. Etherly,
Yes.
Mr. Franklin, Ms. Ford,
Mine wasn't against it. I vote yes. I wasn't against it. I was just wanting more information where we're gonna start digging and just was there a plan and maybe an amount? You might need more than 50, and I know you'll have to come back. So I wasn't against it.
Hey, Ms. Ford, I promise you, we'll give you a list. I promise you.
Boy, but now if that was me.
All right, let's go ahead and continue. Let's go ahead and complete the vote.
Mr. Franklin, I have 3 absent.
I'll vote.
No, because
Wait.
I'll vote
Wait.
yes.
it hadn't looked at financing.
How did Mr. Franklin vote?
No.
Okay,
And I'll vote yes.
okay. That gives 4 yes, 2 absent, 1 no.
The motion passes. Thank you very much. And Ms. Ford, we will bring that back. And I think you raised a very good point about it. So, so we'll bring that back at the next meeting with a little bit more detail. I'd hoped to have it tonight, to be honest, and we just didn't make it in time. So thank you for that. So the next issue, and I believe Chief Smith is on here as well. Anyway, the next item on the agenda, and I believe the items were emailed out to you, is the police department. Speaking of Ms. Ford, this is an issue that you had raised some time ago. The moving expense, furniture, and so forth regarding the police department. Chief Smith, are you still on with us?
Yes, sir, I am.
So just to review, we've begun our lease. We've been working on internet connections and telephones, which we are about to conclude. We're pretty much there. The next step is the actual moving. The goal is to move both chiefs and CID and dispatch, I believe, Chief Smith, if that's ready first, followed by the others. And Chief Smith, I'll recognize you at that point.
Thank you, Mayor. For all the listeners, first and foremost, good evening. We're talking about the location, 1804 Martin Luther King Drive is the Justice Center. That consists of probation and parole, the Sheriff's Department. We have an office for the judge inside that complex. The Helena-West Police Department is attempting to move into this nice facility to pretty much bridge the gap between our both law enforcement agencies. We've already started first phase of the process, and that's actually making sure that we have all the internet connections. We've met with Sophisticity on several occasions. Last week, we met with them to make sure that the internet was already hooked up. They checked all the lines. We looked at also TechLogix, the phone service. We've already got a quote that the mayor had looked at, and instead of just the police department, the entire city government, but the police department will be the first to transfer the phone service over into the complex. The documents that were sent out, I looked at it because it was over $20,000 in our first phase. I've checked with all the local furniture stores, actually 3 local furniture stores. They were unable to provide any type of service because they just went into buying office furniture. Also looked at a couple other locations in Little Rock, Arkansas, and we came up with Office Max and then another book that we received from Ms. Ramsey. Thank you, Ms. Ramsey, National Business Furniture. So what we're looking at under phases, all the specs that you probably have right in front of you, it shows that we're actually furnishing 1 conference room, 5 offices, and we also have another additional that we've added to that was from Home Depot and Lowe's. We have a property and evidence room that will be inside of that facility that needs to be secured with shelving. And also we have a armory, a gun safe, moving all our weapons and all our equipment into that one other room. That would have shelving as well, safes, gun safes, and also actually a table for gunsmith work when we get our weapons and stuff clean and fixed as well. In the first beginning, we didn't have a bathroom, a restroom over there on that side. I got with Judge Hall. They've already provided us a unisex restroom, which I went over there last week to make sure that we had ADA compliance with that, with us receiving grants, federal grant money. That's one of the first things that are going to check and make sure that we're in ADA compliance on that. So the total of the initial, and this is the big bulk of everything, we're looking at approximately about $32,156 of initial furniture. That really covers pretty much everything. We may have to come back because in the front foyer area, once you come into the entrance of the Justice Complex, some may have seen where they're building an addition to the 911 office for our dispatchers. So probably an additional couple of chairs, headsets for the dispatchers, 5 additional chairs, and probably an interview table. We pretty much will be covered. We're looking at probably a little bit under $40,000 on everything that we pretty much need to get us up and moved and running on that end. Currently, what we're doing is going through all our file cabinets because most departments don't look at file cabinets anymore. Everything is trying to scan all records and things that needed to be retained. We're trying to get all that stuff scanned. We're trying to move everything over and consolidate our systems where we'll be able to keep up with all our documents and all records and files and everything. But as I was saying, the initial move in with all the specs for its furniture, for its internet service, telephone service. That's a little bit different, but internet service, furniture, initial furniture, all the furniture for the conference room and property and evidence in our armory, our equipment room. We're looking at approximately about $32,156 initially. That's pretty much it. We're really on schedule with everything now. As I said once before, they've already put in the restroom inside that complex for us. There's two additional restrooms that's inside the building, but we just want to make sure that we have accommodations for those who need those special accommodations for that facility on our end as well. With that being said, if anyone have any questions, I can go ahead and answer those for you right now.
Any questions, pardon me, questions, comments from the council?
Mr. Mayor, Joe St. Columbia.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask the chief, now this $32,156, that's the total amount of getting everything done and getting y'all over there. Is that correct now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the initial cost for everything. The biggest bulk of it right now is actually the furniture. And we've checked with several type of vendors, because one vendor, the shipping would have been like 4 to 6 weeks. And even when they take it off the truck, they was talking about an additional $3,000. So what we want to do, we have a trailer. We can actually go pick up a lot of this and we can put it together ourselves, and that'll cut so much cost of us just putting it together ourselves. But this is the initial startup to get us in there, get us operated and get us up and going, so we can go ahead and start moving all the additional entities inside the police department.
Okay, assuming that we approve this $32,156, what is the date that you feel like y'all can have this done?
Well, we're still looking at shipping. I know with National Business Furniture, that's more of our conference room. And let us talk about the conference room. What we're trying to do is integrate, because we've had this problem once before, as a conference room that is multi-purpose room. And we got Skycop cams. We're going to have cameras inside, well, not cameras, monitors inside that area. We can actually do meetings, conferences, even if there's an emergency in our town, everybody can just pretty much meet in this conference room. I've talked with Levi with Technologics, and they're gonna have an integration system where, say for instance, Mr. Jones is out in the field, and he can actually send, he can get on his phone and actually do a FaceTime or anything like that. It'll come right into that conference room where we're getting live action of what's going on out there in the community as well. What we're trying to do is take our police department and just try to bring it up to a 21st century police department where everybody feel good about our department. Not only that, we're able to communicate and work better with the sheriff's department and other entities inside that building. So it's like a multi-purpose room that we're looking at, and we pretty much cut a lot of costs, but the initial cost of just getting everything over there is $32,156. That's the initial, but we're more likely it's going to be under $40,000.
Sounds reasonable with me. Yeah. Sounds like you got a first-class act here, Chief, and I like the way you put it together.
Thank you, sir.
And one other question I'd like to ask. I understand it's going to be the operation out there is going to be a 24/7, and that the public at any time can make contact out there. Is that correct?
That is correct. One thing I want to stress is That was one of the bigger things. I know Mr. Franklin mentioned it, the mayor has mentioned it, and it makes sense that you have individuals walk up and they want to speak with the police or get any type of interaction with the police department. So Judge Hall agreed, along with a couple of vendors that he has, to actually put a buzzer on the front entrance of that Justice Center, because our dispatchers are already be up there. Once they come up, they buzz in. There will be a camera system that we've already going to integrate on our side and throughout that building, where they can actually have individuals come in, buzzed in, and there's a seating area for them to make sure that they get the service that they deserve and they need at that time. So we already got all that covered already.
And I understand that's not only with the Helena Police, but with the Sheriff's Department as well.
Yes, sir. And absolutely. The Sheriff Department already integrated a body scanner. When you walk in, there's a scanner system. They got the ones, they got pretty much everything. So what we want to do is just have a good relationship with our Sheriff Department, just building that bridge that we work together. It's a good fit, and everybody is pretty much happy with coming out there to that Justice Complex. And may I add that that would actually be the first complex like that in the state of Arkansas.
Thank you, Mr. Chief. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a couple of questions. Well,
Go ahead.
My concern is this, that, you know, even though you leave, the mayor have already decided we will leave off Plaza, where will there be substations? You gotta still look at this. Look how long it takes an ambulance to get from here to Walmart. It's also, it's people who are hurting. We're leaving from the crime, going out to a safe haven. I'm not against everything that the mayor does. That's not what it is. It to me, explain to the public, because I've been trying to explain. We're going out here. So if a murder happens on 7th Street, look at the response time. We already had when Elijah Monday got shot, they was talking about the response time from Helena to where he got shot at. We got elderly people. Have you factored in a substation? So that puts Helena still at a disadvantage, because Helena had no protection over there, over by the Cherry Street area, over by Walnut, and over there. They were hollering about protection. What do we have to protect those people who still need to make reports? They have to go out to the Sheriff's Department. You say, buzz in. We had the same problem in West Helena, though we had a guy didn't get any response. So an incident happened where he got locked up for an incident that happened. We have to think about the people. We still have to think about the people. And I'm just a little concerned about that. I'm concerned about how can people who don't have a car access the police department. Most of the people came to the police department to knock on the door, or they just walked in. I'm not against anything. I just want to be able to tell these people who need the help in the neighborhood. I know it's good. Everybody want to move to a new house, new furniture, new this and that. I don't know. I'm done. I don't know. Maybe you all can figure it out, because it is not making. If you go move from over here, we don't even have a plan to do nothing with the old police station. We don't have any plans to do anything with that. But we're gonna abandon our police station, move out here for a jail that we'll never finish paying for, and a spot that we'll never own. So if you decide all the money you spend on this furniture, have you factored in the overtime that your guys gonna get for putting this furniture together? You say we're gonna have sky cams. Who's monitoring the sky cams? Who went for training to monitor these things? It's a lot of questions, and sometimes In the past, I've moved a little too fast, but now I'm trying to slow down and see, look at the realistic of it. I'm just asking questions, and I may not be favorable, but it's a lot of things need to be answered. I'm put here by the people, and they asking me these questions, and I cannot answer. Chief, I don't see you every day. You're not here every day, and I can put my eyes on you. So I don't see you. You probably here, but I'm not seeing you. It's a lot of other things that we need to address in the community. We still have murders that are unsolved. We have a lot of things, and now the department is way out here. We move from the citizens. I'm done.
Mr. Mayor, Joe St. Columbia. May I have the floor?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Franklin. We may need some substations. Of course, as time goes on, we can solve that problem very easily by working with both the chief of police and the county judge and the sheriff's department. They might need a substation down in Elaine or something. But as time goes on, we're going to solve this law enforcement by being united with our group of law enforcement people and putting them all in one location. The council has decided that we're going to make the move. That's been decided long ago, and we've spent all that money to do it. So, the $32,156 needs to be settled tonight, and I'd like to make the motion that we approve the funds of $32,156 to move the police department to the location and get it over with and get it done. And as time goes on, if we need a substation somewhere, I'd be willing to entertain that idea. But we'll need to see where we need it, when we need it, and how bad we need it in different areas when necessary. But the way the chief talks, they're going to be so well organized out there. They're going to be on, and we're going to have patrol cars going around, and we're going to have sky cops. We got those cameras, and I understand too they use those drones now too. Also, I understand we have a few of them out. So I think we're getting well organized by joining with the sheriff's department and into the complex. We need to get moved in, and need to get moved in as quickly as we can. And I make the motion that we appropriate the funds necessary. Mr. Chief Smith said tonight, $32,156. I make the motion.
Mr. Mayor, may I add something?
Yes.
Okay, then I want to answer Mr. Franklin's question.
But hold on, Chief. 1 second. I want to make sure the motion was accurate, and then let's see if we get a second, and then we'll do that. What was the amount on the motion, Mr. St. Columbia?
The amount was what? Well, he said $32,156. He figured less than $40,000. So I'll make the motion that we spend up to, but not to exceed $40,000.
Chief, is that? Okay.
Yes, sir.
There's a motion on the floor for not to spend up to appropriate over $40,000 for the furnishings and equipment needs to move the police department to the law enforcement complex. Is there a second? Is there a second? Okay, motion, unless somebody was on mute, motion dies for lack of a second. Chief Smith, you're recognized. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Thank you. To answer Mr. Franklin's questions, he had several. First of all, we only covered 13.9 square miles that the Helena-West Police Department covered. And I understand about response time. We've also talked about, actually, I need to make a call to a couple of individuals who said the same thing. They actually said that we needed substations, and I believe we do. We're also looking at Eliza Miller. We've been contacted by representatives with Eliza Miller to actually put a substation there. I think we need to re-look at, because Mr. Franklin, you said it once and it made sense. The old library, we can try to work a deal with the old library on Plaza Street. And then we also we can't leave the individuals out in Helena. We need a substation somewhere in Helena as well. But that comes with hiring more police officers, getting those individuals out there and being able to have a location where people can have access to them. We've actually had a lot of individuals that will come to the police department, but I think that's something that we just need to look at and we need to address it. It's already been looked at. We've already talked about it. I have plans to be able to put out some information out there to the community to say, hey, we want to be able to come to you and serve you the best way we actually can. For us, the Sky Cop training is nothing that really individual have to do on the Sky Cop cam is other than watching it, monitoring it. We're trying to monitor that thing actually for 24 hours a day. We have trained dispatchers, we have trained officers, and we want to be more proactive than we are reactive. And that just comes with time. It just comes with implementing the plan that we already have. But I do agree, we need substation. I think that's a long way out. We're near the hospital. We trying to get a different look of our law enforcement, bringing us more together, but you absolutely correct. Actually, I should be meeting with someone this week about a substation in Eliza Miller building. I would like to look at some other entities with West Helena Housing Authority of putting a substation somewhere in the community. We're still on time with our Sky Cops. We already got the trailer and 3 more that's coming. That's right around the corner. We should have them next week. And then we already received a $48,000 USDA grant again for 3 additional ones. That would actually get us up to about 10 Sky Cop cams. And I'm looking to obtain an additional 5 additional Sky Cop cams before December with the approval of the city council. So I understand there's a lot that we're asking for, but then at the same time, we're doing our best to make sure that we give this service to the community and answer all those questions. So I do agree. We need to have substations throughout. You know, we've always looked at what's going on in West Helena, but we've never tried to do anything for our community's citizens in Helena. So I do agree with that. But the main thing is this lease is only, this contract was a year. That's something that the council had agreed to implement a year. And if it don't work, maybe everybody we can come back to the round table and find out what's going to be the best fit. But since we've already said that we're going to move forth on this, this is just pretty much, we've kept it as low as we possibly can, that we're not spending over $100,000 for some furniture and everything, but we want it to look nice. And I have no problem with anybody on the city council just want to do a walkthrough. And if we have any questions, and I'm up for suggestions from anybody. But the main thing is that we want to just be able to go ahead and move, since we've already made that commitment. The county has made that commitment. It's been something on the table for months, and we just want to make a move. And while we in the process of moving, I think we need to sit down, Mr. Franklin, at your convenience. If we go out and we find some other solutions of getting a substation or whatever we can do for our community. And with that, I yield.
And can I respond back to that?
Sir?
Chief, I would like to do that. But see, the issue that we have, for me right now, it's already set in stone that we're moving out here. I would have liked to see the department have a plan for the uses of the old building. If we knew when the day that the mayor that signed this contract about a month ago, 2 months ago, when he signed this contract, the department should have sent out a notice to the citizens. Hey, look, we're trying to work on, even if you rehab the police department that we have, the building that we have. The county owns the library, and since the county give us the library back, they should be flooded, so they should be responsible for fixing that. The West Helena House has given us substation before.
And you know what? And what I'm telling you, Mr. Franklin, and I'm not trying to argue with you or anything like that. Respectfully, I want to let you know that when we did that, because we weren't answering additional calls and doing security work actually for that entity, they took it back from us. And a lot of people don't know that. So, my thing is, the bottom line is, and I understand, we try to fix up the old police department. You know, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig. You know, what more can we do to it? We have a leaking roof. I mean, mold inside the building, and we've tried to do everything. And I'm looking at, maybe we could have went another route, but now we're at this table now with the same suggestions and solutions. What we're going to do? We got to give something to people.
And not to cut you off.
Yes, sir.
I've been on the city council. We put a $100,000 roof on that building and another building. Yeah, I understand that. But what I'm saying here is, see, if you look at it right now, the police department, this city council gave $800,000 to budget. Mr. Turner just said that he don't think y'all even gonna spend the $500. Y'all gonna spend $500,000 for the whole year. So look at the money. That's $300,000 that's gonna be sitting there on the table. So my thing is this: we have not hired enough police officers. I don't know why. I mean, the council has approved all this. My whole thing is this: public safety. People are getting shot. And I'm not trying to bash you, Chief. I'm not trying to bash anybody. I'm looking at that I was shot at. I hadn't got any resolution from when I got shot at. The lady who got all these incidents, the lady who got killed, all this stuff is happening. And yeah, I can't say the police department can do everything, but if you move, at least let the folks know, hey, listen, we're gonna be vigilant in the community. We're gonna have spots that we sit and we can try to help the community out, because we're hurting a lot of people. And it's good that you move, it's fine, that we're getting new equipment, do this and that, and other things. Like you said, like putting lipstick on the pig. You moving out here, the same pig with the lipstick on gonna be out here, because guess what? You're putting some folks at a disadvantage. Some folks, unless they're going toward the bridge. You know, think about it. What about the people behind Miller, Eliza Miller, Denise Drive? What about those people on over here on what's the name of the street over here? Over here, the street, Westwood, all over there where Mr. Ether is living, all over in that part of the community. Look how far that is to try to drive. If you're out here by the Conoco, out by there, or if you're on the street, any of these streets out going out toward 49, it's gonna be a problem. And then you look at deep over in Helena Park. Look how long it takes you to get over to Helena Park. We have to have people somewhere, and it may be a good idea, but when you're doing something, let the citizens know, hey, this is the best interest for us right now, but we're in the process, just like we're in the process of moving out here, we're gonna spend $30,000 on some furniture. We should let these people know, hey, listen, we're gonna set up this. If you can spend $30,000 on some furniture, at least we can get with Helena House or somebody say, hey, listen, if you can at least hire 2 officers to be over Helena, because Mr. Turner clearly said that he don't think y'all would spend over $500,000 this year. We budget y'all $800,000. So we short, and I think that we should get people to play in places where people can see, okay, they're trying, because the next election cycle, people holler about public safety and cleanliness, and we ain't doing too good. And I mean, I'm just saying.
Mr. Franklin, can you wrap this up? We need to see if there are any other members of questions. Any other members? Ms. Franklin, you got just wrap. All I'm asking you to do, I'm politely asking you to wrap it up. We've got a lot of other people. We've got some other things on the agenda, including something for you.
Well, man, I just said I was done. And I mean, you know,
All
every
right,
time
thank
I
you,
speak,
thank you,
you always do
thank
that,
you,
man.
thank you, Ms. Franklin. Now, are there any other questions or comments of Chief Smith on this issue?
Well, I got
At
one
this
thing,
time?
Mayor. I think Mr. Franklin should be able to talk, and what I would like to do is sit down with Mr. Franklin and let's go through this plan together. I think, you know, I don't have all the answers. I don't think anybody, but we got to work together, even though we don't break bread with each other. And I would love to sit down with you and
Yeah,
talk
well,
with you
let me
and
just
get some
interrupt
of
you
your
there.
ideas.
Let me just interrupt you there to decide that city council members can meet with us at any time they want. So all city council members are welcome to meet with you or me about this issue anytime they want. But we do have to move on because other members of the council have time considerations and people on this call. I'm going to wrap this up on this segment. If we don't have a motion, I'm going to say this. We should have 3 police stations the same way we have 3 fire stations. Crime is dramatically down this year. It was violent crime was dramatically down last year and dramatically down the year before that. Despite the perspectives that people might have, our crime rate here is, our violent crime rate is great, especially, and even last year, our property crime rate has gone dramatically down. So it's not all about where you are located physically. It is more important to be seen in the community. We have new cars that are about to arrive anytime now. We have had an old, aging, decrepit fleet. Since I've been here, we've had to, well, I'm not going to talk about how we disperse police, but I will just tell you that we've had police out in force 24/7, covering all parts of the community since I've been mayor. The bad news is it's put a toll on our vehicles that were already in bad shape when I became mayor, and we're about to get new vehicles. We're about to get even more Sky Cops. And we've done some other things that have been mentioned. I'm a downtown Helena businessman, have been for a long time. And when the sheriff's office moved to the law enforcement complex on the bypass, that's the first time we went without any law enforcement in downtown Helena. That's something that worries me a lot. So this is not your issue, Mr. Franklin, alone. This is something I've campaigned on and trying hard to make happen. And I'm open to anybody who wants to cooperate on it instead of fight about it. However, the only way we're going to get there is if we work together on it. And all of the platitudes and speeches in the world don't matter if we don't do anything about it. So I've sat patiently through your speeches, and all of that's wonderful. At the end of the day, this community is safer right now because of Chief Smith, because of some of the things that we've done in the last couple of years. And it's going to be even more safe in the next couple of years because of the things we're trying to propose to do tonight. And I'm proud of that. And our community should be proud of that we're moving forward in law enforcement. And I hope and would invite you to join Chief Smith and have that conversation he just invited you to, in the interest of serving our community and not ourselves as politicians, but the people we serve.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm going to move on. Is there another motion to be made on this issue?
I'll make the motion again but I'd like to say I'm tired of kicking this can down the road. We need to take some action because nothing's going to happen, and we need to fight crime. And by putting our police department out there, we can fight it a lot better. I'm convinced that's the right thing to do, and I'll make the motion again and ask my constituents on the council, please reconsider and give a second, and let's work together and get this thing done. I make a motion that we approve the appropriations of, as I said earlier, I make that same motion again, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. St. Columbia makes a motion that we appropriate up to $40,000 in furniture and equipment for the moving of the police department to the law enforcement complex on the bypass. Is there a second?
If you add a reason for those, because we're doing all this.
I'm sorry, I can't. Is there a second on the motion? There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Yes, if you add a raise in it for the police officers. It's only when you get a second.
We've given, Mr. Franklin, that's not the motion. Is there a second on this motion? Yes or no? Okay, and because this is technology, if in case anybody's muted, one more time, is there a second on the motion? Okay, if not, motion dies for lack of a second. We're going to move on to the pandemic funding campaign, which is the next on the agenda. Thank you, Chief Smith. All right, we're going to move on to that. I'm not going to belabor that issue. We approved that, and all I will do is give you an update on it. We've made some preliminary contacts with some of the people in the nonprofit church community in the county and the city, and we've made a lot of progress on it. Some of the public advertising should be underway now in some media. A couple I think we're still working with. The door-to-door, which is the part that we talked about last week, is still being put together, but there are people putting it together, and hopefully that'll be deployed pretty soon. Having said that, I'm going to move on to the incentive for vaccinations. Mr. Franklin, you're recognized.
I had spoken to Mr. Turner about some kind of incentive for our staff, you know, police, fire, the whole city of Helena-West administration, to get some kind of incentive to those who have already vaccinated and trying to get people encouraged to get them vaccinated. I told Mr. Turner to run a number. I don't know what number. I said at least $200 to $250 to encourage people to get vaccinated, something to get our vaccination rate with our employees and our leaders in our community. That's something that I asked Mr. Turner on.
Mr. Turner, you want to respond? Mr. Turner, you're cutting up, Mr. Franklin. Mr. Turner, you want to? Mr. Franklin, you're cutting up. Mr. Turner, do you want to respond to that? The incentive question that Mr. Franklin posed.
Yeah, if he's talking about $250, I calculate there's about 120 some odd people that currently work for the city. That would be about $30,000. But I need to double check with where the funds will come from. If it's going to come from the Rescue Plan Act, there are certain aspects of it, like the lost revenue portion that you discussed earlier, that I believe that those funds will have to come from that portion of it. And so they're going to have a Zoom call tomorrow, and I'm going to join that Zoom call to get a little bit more specific information about how we can use those funds.
So the question is whether we can give all city employees $250 out of the Rescue Act?
Well, those funds can only be used for certain things, right?
Right.
And so when you have this lost revenue aspect of it, the lost revenue can be used for that. But I just want to make sure that it can. And I kind of have to correct you earlier when you said that we didn't have a loss. I thought we didn't when I was just looking at the general fund, but getting some more information about it, we can use all sources of revenue, from tax revenue, fees, and turn back money from state agencies. So in calculate, the only thing we can't count is the federal revenues. And so looking at
the only revenue that I'm aware of that we lost would have been, and I could be mistaken about this, but we lost some revenue from fees that were not charged when we did not cut off people's water, and we did not collect some fees and late fees and some of those issues with the water department. We also probably lost some money in revenue, in A&P tax in the hospitality industry for a variety of reasons. I'm not aware of any direct reason we lost money because of the pandemic. I am aware of reasons we gained money because of the pandemic. People were shopping at home more. People were shopping online more. And for the first time, online taxes were just coincidentally went into effect about the time the pandemic hit. I know overall we didn't lose money. I'm concerned about being audited because this money is going to be federally audited. I'm concerned about looking for excuses to give money to people if we don't have an absolutely solid documented case, number one. Number two, I'm not convinced, based on what I know, that you can just routinely give money to employees out of it. It has to be somewhat connected to first responders and also first responders who, where it's in some ways related to the pandemic. The only problem with that is that we already did that with the money that we received last year. So to make an argument today we're not appropriately compensated because of the pandemic would be a very difficult argument to make, and even harder to make when it comes to documentation. And we will have a federal audit on this money. So it's always popular to talk about giving people money, but it's not too popular when you get dinged on it later from the federal government or from an audit. And I would just suggest that we plod very carefully, because once we go down that road, everyone will think that they're owed something. We had a vaccination requirement, a mandate that I sent out as mayor back when vaccinations first came out, with the two exceptions being religion and health. We had a few people take those exceptions, but I would say 90% of our city employees are already vaccinated. So I'm not exactly sure what the incentive would be to be vaccinated if you're already vaccinated. It seems to me just an excuse to give employees money, which we just gave a 3% COLA raise. We've given many raises. I wish we could give more, and maybe we will in places like the water department and the street department or in the public works department. But it wouldn't really be related to the pandemic. It would be related to the fact that our finances are overall better even without federal money. And so that question needs to be handled on its own, because someday we will not have federal money, and people will employees will continue to expect to be paid, and in some ways rightfully so, the money that they received earlier. And if we don't have the money at that time, then we're going to regret doing it now. So there are a lot of issues that go into that, and I'm going to tell you right now up front that I plan on weighing in pretty heavily on it, because I've studied this myself. We are going to be audited on it, and while there are a lot of excuses to use this money for a lot of things we would like to use it on, when you can't hook up to a fire hydrant no, excuse me, Mr. Franklin, you've had the floor long enough. When you can't hook up a fire hydrant because it doesn't work and the house burns down, that's pretty basic.
Okay.
And if we don't do those things first, after all the raises we've given this year, and the first thing you want to talk about to spend this federal money is how to give people more money. And I'm sorry, I'll take exception to it. We need to, you talked about prioritization, Mr. Franklin. Let me tell you about priorities. Our priorities should be to work for behalf of this. No, Mr. Franklin, you don't get to talk over me. Our priorities with this money should be able to help our citizens, the citizens we work for on behalf, not to help ourselves.
Well, okay.
Not to help ourselves, but to help others in our city that desperately need it. And when you can't hook up to a fire plug, that's pretty basic. That's pretty serious. So I would suggest that when we prioritize this money, we start by talking about the basics we need to provide our citizens, and not the money that we want to give our buddies and ourselves. And I'm done. And we're done with this conversation. No, sir, you're not recognized. We're going to go on.
I got a question.
No, sir, you're not recognized. We're going to go into the Arkansas Environmental Standards. Mr. Jones, you're recognized.
I don't think that was fair. Because
Mr. Franklin, you're not recognized, and I don't frankly care. You're not recognized.
I don't think that
Mr. Jones, you're recognized. No, sir, Mr. Franklin, you're not recognized. You're out of order.
I'm not.
Now, the treasurer's already said he's got to get more information on this issue.
But I've already made it clear how I feel
about it.
I was not finished.
No, sir, Mr. Franklin, you don't run this meeting.
I was not finished.
No, sir.
I was not finished.
Mr. Franklin, you are not recognized just because you talk louder.
Because you're not going to get the last word.
Mr. Franklin, please,
No,
mute his
I'm gonna
microphone.
get just like you got
I'm
a chance
asking
to
that
talk.
you mute his
I'm-
microphone.
No, you
If
cannot
we were in a
mute me.
regular meeting, you'd be
cannot.
removed
You
from the
will
meeting.
not
Mr.
mute me.
Franklin, you're out of order. Now,
Mayor.
Mr. Jones, you were recognized to discuss the Arkansas environmental
This money
standards.
can be used in paying our employees premium and
Mr.
stuff
Franklin,
like that. That's
please
what I
mute
want to
his
do.
microphone.
I'm not,
If you can't communicate effectively in a meeting, you're not going to be recognized.
well, guess what?
No,
Then guess
sir.
what? You're
No,
not,
sir.
you're not going to get them.
Please
try to
mute
make
his
like somebody's
microphone.
about the money.
Mr.
Help pay
Jones,
our
you're
employees.
recognized for the
Yes,
last
I'm
time.
here.
Mr.
We can
Mr.
help pay our
Franklin,
employees premium.
stop talking.
Mr. Valley.
Yes, I'm on the line. Now, I think that going back to just the previous conversation, both of y'all are being petty, and both of y'all are.
Mr. Valley, you don't run this meeting either.
Mr.
And I
Mayor,
appreciate your opinion, but you
Don't
don't
yell
run
it.
this meeting.
don't
And I'm
yell it.
not being petty. Mr.
You are
Turner
being-
answered his question.
I'm yelling at-
No, sir. Mr. Franklin wants to talk. No, sir. Mr. Franklin wants to talk. We have order. We've adopted rules of order, Robert's Rules of Order,
Mr. Mayor,
and Mr. Franklin was not recognized.
I know the
And we're
rules.
moving on from that issue. And when Mr. Turner
Okay.
gets more information, we will put it back on the
know
agenda
what
for a civilized conversation.
Mr. Mayor, I'm trying to have a civilized conversation. You're yelling at me. So you should give the same respect to others as you demand from Mr. Franklin. Now, I would appreciate, I have not said nothing this entire meeting, and you immediately start saying, no, sir, Mr. Valley, no, sir, Mr. Valley. Calm
Well,
down.
we're not on that. We're not on that agenda item.
We are on it. We are
No,
on
we're
it.
not. No, we're
Yes, we
not.
are. Well, yes, we are. Because here's the thing about it is, you cannot have it both ways. You cannot yell at other people and then sit there and try to shut other people off when they express their opinions. Now, you did the same thing to me, and I hadn't said nothing all meeting. And I'm not trying to defend Mr. Franklin, but I'm talking about fundamental fairness. That's all I'm saying. Now, Mr. Jones asked me to comment on this environmental thing. And Mr. Jones was the person that asked me to speak. I was sitting here quietly typing on other things. I had some things I wanted to say about things earlier, but I would never recognize. But on this environmental thing, Mr. Jones, what was your question for me?
Can you please explain to the council the rules and the laws about this matter, please, sir?
Well, Mr. Jones has been lamenting about historically what has happened. That the city has picked up all manner of debris from the sides of the road. And initially, when we consolidated, Helena had a ordinance in place where it charged the citizens $4 for picking up all manner of debris. When during the meeting of consolidation and discussing consolidating the two departments, there was not a discussion specific about what would be picked up, but there was a general consensus that we would pick up whatever was on the side of the road because citizens were paying for it. The ordinance does not define that. The ordinance, because there was not the political will to define that, it doesn't define it. Well, there have been laws that have been passed that clearly state that many of the things that we're doing, you're creating dumping sites. And Mr. Jones has been texting all of the council and the mayor and myself about people putting beds on the side of the road, people putting mattresses on the side of the road, people putting tires and all other things and having to pick it up. And what he has done is requested that we begin to cite people for doing so. Part of it is there was a initial draft by Mr. Jones and the mayor regarding informing the city, all of the city members, all of the city citizens of the city, that there will start being fines and et cetera, and there'll be enforcement of you putting anything other than the limbs on the side of the road. People have taken it to the extreme. They're putting trees on the side of the road for city to pick up. They're tearing down houses, putting on the side of the road for city to pick up. They're putting whatever on the side of the road that they can, and they're creating dumping sites on vacant lots and et cetera. So it's becoming a problem where we have public nuisances popping up all over the city. And so Mr. Jones wanted greater enforcement of that through citations. He has a meeting scheduled Thursday with me and the mayor with court enforcement. And he wanted the city council to be aware and the citizens to be aware of simply that the way we've been doing business is not working. And there's no definition in the ordinance as to what exactly we're picking up and how we're going to pick it up. And what he's saying is he's going to follow the state law and start citing people for putting mattresses on side of the road and other things, because the city is not going to pick those things up. Does that sum up what you said, Mr. Jones?
Yes, sir, I agree with you, Mr. Valley.
And he wanted to bring that to the city council's attention, et cetera, because he wants to be more aggressive in having a clear definition as to what we're picking up and what we're not picking up, because people expect the city to just pick up whatever they side of the road.
So what's the proposal for what we do now differently?
We're starting it, you know, we're gonna advocate the citizen and make them aware of it, that, you know, they can't put, I mean, this is a state law. This is not the city law, it's a state law. And we're gonna let the citizen know this is something we're not gonna continue to tolerate. We're gonna give them a couple months. We're gonna advertise it through the newspaper, radio station, anybody we can reach out, you know, to get this out to the citizen. We're gonna do that. But in about 2 months, this was gonna be zero tolerance. I mean, we got city, pardon me?
Questions? Questions or comments from the council?
Mr. Mayor, Joe St. Columbia.
Yes, sir.
I have one question from Mr. Jones. What you're saying is there is a state law that flows into the city that applies for debris other than trash and garbage that goes in our garbage cans, like household furniture, bedding, mattresses, chairs and tables or whatever, furniture, entire trees and what have you. That is against the state law. Is that correct, Mr. Jones?
Indeed, yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, so we have to abide by state rules and regulations as well as city.
Yes, sir. I mean, it's actually turning into a free garbage route.
Yeah. Yeah, instead of properly handling it, they're just causing the city a super cost of this by
yes, sir.
Our labor. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Jones?
Indeed, yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Forward, what would be the proper way for myself and others to dispose of these items?
And that ought, yes, to take it to the landfill. We don't have a transfer station. So the proper way to do it is take it to a landfill.
So people can bring things to the landfill. Is there a fee
Yes,
associated with it?
the fee, we can't change the state fee. There's a fee, and we take it, and actually it's cheaper to do this. You know, when these people, I mean, like if you move out, let me say this, if you move out a bedroom set or a washing machine and dryer, and you want to, instead of setting it on side the road, which are fine probably $1,000 or $500, it's cheaper to take it to the landfill, and you might not even be out of $25. It's cheaper to do it that way.
What is the disposal fee? What will it be based on? Will it be based on item or will it be based on weight?
Tonnage, yeah, weight, pretty much weight. Because once ADEQ set they tonnage fee, we can't change it. We can't say, okay, you bring a couch in here, I'm gonna charge you for this couch. We can't change state law when it come down to ADEQ rules and regulations. That's what it is. It's totally about tonnage. And what I mean about tonnage, you're right, Ms. Ford, weight.
So
whatever it brings, it's got to go across the scale.
What he's saying is tonnage, Miss Ford. He's talking, when we did a contract with the Solid Waste District Board, during that time period, we could set up to charge citizens less money and et cetera before we agree with the solid waste. But once we do that contract, we have to charge what it says, and that's what it is. We didn't create an exemption for it's what Mr. Jones is saying.
I understood that it was tonnage, you know, TONAGE, tonnage. But is there a listing to say how much it's going to cost, or if it weighs 100 pounds, it's this cost? If it is there something available that I will know before I bring it out there?
Yes, ma'am. Again, we're gonna make that aware to all citizens, and especially the council members first. For your attorney's fees and all that, we're gonna make that aware. And that's why I asked Mr. Valley and the mayor to be on, to let y'all know about this. I'll get with Andre and the mayor Monday, and we can move forward with it. Whatever we need to do to help this city, that's what we need to do.
Well, the
I would
project,
just add to that the rates are set by the contract that we signed with, well, let me just rephrase it. The rates are set in an agreement with the East Arkansas Solid Waste Authority. And right now it's $35 a ton.
A ton,
They
yes.
raised the rates January of 2019 to better reflect the cost. To be more competitive and also reflect the true cost of it. It was an increase, but we're still lower than most places. So you go across the scale. I just did it yesterday myself, actually, with some household stuff. You go across the way, you stop on the scale, you go inside, you sign in, you take it and you dump it, you come back, and you get on the scale again, they weigh you again, and the difference is how much you dumped, and that's what they charge you based on. It's a fraction of, well, in most cases, it's going to be a fraction of a ton because most people aren't going to have a ton, but our commercial haulers do, and that's how it's currently assessed.
So Mary, when you say dumping, I would have to unload it.
Yes, ma'am. Well, that's what I did yesterday. They offered to do it for me, but that's just because I'm the mayor. But I did it myself anyway.
I don't know if I would be able to, but that's why.
Yeah. Well, it's also an issue for contractors who have a habit of coming into town and dumping it on the side of the road, not particularly in anyone's yard, but in a vacant lot or somewhere inside the city limits to avoid having to pay those scale fees when they take it to the landfill so that they can charge less or make more profit when they do the work they do elsewhere. That is not allowed. That's not legal now. They're supposed to take it to the landfill, and most contractors do that. But we have some who don't, and it's a dumping problem. We also have an issue with tires in Arkansas now. They haven't raised the rates. When you get new tires, you pay a disposal fee set by the state. That disposal fee goes into a program that pays our landfill and the county and others for those tires, a disposal of those tires in a way that is environmentally friendly. And those rates have not been raised in years. So if you'll notice, you'll see more and more tires piling up around the city, but also around the county and all the other counties, because the legislature refuses to raise those rates to be more reflective of the cost. The Solid Waste Authority lost about $70,000, I think it was, last year in the tire program because we could not set the rates we wanted to set for those tires. So there are a lot of issues when it comes to solid waste and to waste in the landfill. But anyway, back to your issue, the average person would have to drive it out there and dump it. And one of the things that we'd like to see happen at the landfill is a better interface with the public. And I've visited the Jonesboro landfill and a few others that have been able to do that, so that regardless of the weather, your road is good. You can back it up and dump it into a customer service center, basically. And then the landfill crew comes and gets it later and takes it out to the actual cell. We don't have the money to do that yet. I'm hoping we can get some funding from federal and state sources to help us do that. And also we've looked at some financing with ADEQ and USDA rural development to help us add some of those functions to the landfill for average citizens. The only thing I would add is that we're actually pretty spoiled here in part because of Mayor Valley's brother. Most places do not have the kind of roadside pickup that we do in our city. And I would say that we take it for granted, really, we do. I may include it. I mean, I'll be the first one to say I'm guilty. We take for granted most places in the United States, you might have one roadside pickup a month, let alone every day. So we have been, and when it comes to this anyway, this is one area of city services that we have learned to take for granted, most of us, and the expenses are way beyond what the income is for it. Anyway, I'll be quiet.
Okay, just for information to the council, two of the things that Mr. Jones not gonna meet with the judge about is there's a whole section, start with Arkansas Code 8, Section 6 in the 400s. What it talks about is littering, illegal littering, and et cetera. And then 86500s forward in 2020, there was an illegal dumping statutes passed. And in the 600s that Mr. Jones has talked about, that there's additional penalties for illegal dumping. Most of the things, the abandoned vehicles, household appliances, other things being placed on the side of the road, most of these ordinances were adopted after consolidation, but they're available now. The practical issue for the city council is some people, there has to be public education, because some people are going to say, I'm already paying for that when I pay for water. And our ordinance does not define that. And that's why Mr. Jones wanted to address that with city council. Our ordinance doesn't define what exactly we're picking up and what is permitted and what. And so those are the things why we, Mr. Jones was saying that surely we not, if it's not in writing, we're not agreeing to pick up all of this stuff. Now, historically, we have picked up all that stuff, but therein lies the rub. What we're doing is create illegal dumps, basically, because we're allowing people just to throw stuff on the side of the road in the right of way, and et cetera. And that's specifically addressed in the legislation passed in 2019, made effective May 1st, 2020.
I'll just add this. Another thing, when I became mayor, I did not know, so I'll say this publicly and we'll move on unless there are other questions. There was really only one official in this county who was licensed to issue dumping fines. And that official was for definitely was not their primary duty, to say the least. And so that didn't really happen. The other one was in Wynn or Jonesboro, and I called him when I had a video of it, somebody, and I basically said that, you know, it's too far away, we're not gonna be able to get down there and so forth. Well, now, Mr. Jones and also Greg Williams took classes in Little Rock, both passed their tests with flying colors, I might add, both made A's on their test, and were sworn in by a circuit judge, I believe it was a circuit judge, a state judge in Little Rock, and given state and law enforcement authorities on dumping and other environmental laws. And so now we do have not one, but two people who can enforce state environmental laws, not just city. And most of the anti-dumping laws, even though we have ordinances, the really serious ones are state laws that have penalties that make people pay attention. And so, for example, the fine can go up to $5,000 per incident. And I believe, Mr. Jones, you've already issued one or two citations. And I can't talk about everything we're doing, but we're doing a lot on that front because we have a lot of dumping issues here, which is no big surprise. So I just wanted to make sure the council knew that in case you didn't know. We certainly publicized that a lot, but we've never had that. We've never had a state certified environmental officer work for the city ever. And so that's a big development, and I'm proud of Mr. Jones and Mr. Williams both for taking that on. Any other questions on the Arkansas environmental standards? It's 8:09, but we have time to do the honorary street naming ordinance, Mr. Valley, if you want to.
Well, I didn't get any feedback from anybody other than Mr. Etherly, and I got some feedback from some of the planning commission members. The ordinance as written has part that some of the planning commission members objected to, and they want to bring the attention to parts to change it. There's a provision in there that initially they were fine with, but after contemplation, they're not. That provision is that the street sign would expire after 10 years. But I had two people to bring that to my attention from the planning commission, but I sent it out to everybody for comment, and those are the only two comments I've gotten from either board. Because I emailed to everybody on the planning commission as well as the city council, but the planning commission looked at this a couple of years ago. It's not necessary to adopt tonight. If y'all want more time to look at it, if you hadn't looked at it, that's fine. We could do it the first meeting in September, if you so choose.
Attorney Valley, I did look at it. I thought it was a very good document. I just wasn't sure on the, the fees yet. I think there was that $500 mentioned or something like that.
There were two fees that were left blank. Because they was asking, one fee it was for to pay for the application. So it'd be a serious amount of money for you to pay for the application. And another, they'll have to agree to pay all of the costs to erect it. Right. The city will be paying nothing. The whatever entity, whether the person wants the honorary sign would have to pay, and that was left blank for you all to discuss as to how you wanted the people to have to pay to go through the process. And it's a non-refundable fee at that.
I think that's great. It speaks to the seriousness of the matter. So I would agree with the document.
Yeah, but the question, I don't have it before me, but the question that I had was, what type of fee would the body want to charge for it? I think they had suggested something like $250, but they said they deferred to the council for that. But I think the ordinance that I drafted left that blank as to what was the fee, that application fee for it, because the application be made to the Department of Public Works, but it's through the city clerk's office, so that you can have all the preliminary stuff done, and it's a record with the city clerk's office, but it's really being filed with the city clerk on behalf of the Public Works Department. But if you all need more time to look at it, that's fine with me. I have no issue with that. I just was trying to make sure I brought it to that. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Valley. I think we've lost our quorum anyway. Ms. Ford, do you have any other questions?
No, I don't.
Any other members of the council who are on who have any questions? Mr. Etherly?
No.
Okay. Well, Mr. Valley, we've lost quorum anyway, but you've introduced it. You've introduced it tonight, so we can. Would you like to move this to the next agenda?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, and we appreciate your attendance. It's past the 2 o'clock rule that the council wanted to try and keep it to. So with that, we'll wish you all a good night, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Thank you very much.